name is Harry Caldwell, and I am the chairperson of the African Americans Males Issues Committee. I welcome you to this Black Man Speak presentation. We'll start by singing the Black Man Speaks anthem, and the singers are myself, Harry Caldwell, who wrote the verses, Renwick Vitito, William Garrett, and Kenneth Davis.
How do we affect the lives of our community? How do we heal and mend the family? We'll begin by sharing our story and addressing all of our needs. Things will change, our lives regain when Black men speak. We lift our voice to speak about the things that we go through to enlighten and educate and inspire you. Yeah, let's eradicate the stigma and the trauma in our community. Things will change, our lives regain when Black men speak.
The mission of Black Men Speak is to inform and enlighten the mental health community and the general public about issues concerning the African American males with mental health and substance abuse challenges through a speakers bureau. Our goal is to work toward healing the African American community from stigma, discrimination, and trauma by sharing our stories, therefore promoting and increasing wellness, recovery, and freedom.
Things will change, our lives regain when Black men speak.
Let me describe background of Black Men Speak. Black Men Speak is a project of the African American Males Issues Committee, part of the pool of consumer champions, Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services. The African American Males Issues Committee began March of 2009. We enlisted facilitators and to help us develop our mission, the project we wanted to do, and then to plan the project. That project evolved into Black Men Speak, a speakers bureau of Black men who have experienced stigma and discrimination as Black men and people with substance abuse and mental health issues. I am proud to be a member and chair of the African American Males Issues Committee and proud to introduce our first speaker. I'll begin with Mr. Roscoe Mosley.
Morning, my name is Roscoe Mosley. So this episode begins with me telling my story. I was born in Portland, Arkansas, although I hear tell that I was born in a ditch outside of Sunshine, Arkansas, along the road. All I know is that one day the sky opened up and here I am. So as a boy, we had a farm with chickens, ducks. I had a dog named Sam, had a cat named Henry, a snapping turtle named Tom, 2 black and white dogs named Black Girl and Black Boy, 1 horse, 1 cow. I remember churning milk into buttermilk. However, my chores consisted of slopping hogs, chopping wood for the wood stove, feeding chickens. I picked cotton. I weeded soybeans. See, we lived in the woods. The only way we come into town, we had to be pulled by wagon. We only bought sugar and flour. We always hunted and killed our own meat. All the boys had rifles, and the women did the cooking. I started driving tractor at 8 years old, plowing fields for cultivation. I went to an all-black school. I did experience segregation. I sought to find out why people didn't like the way I looked, the way I spoke, the way I interacted, the color of my skin. I often stared into the skies and wondered why things happened, not knowing that God had a plan, and fortunately I was a part of it. Now, my California learning was quite different. I didn't know what drugs was, so too did the military, where it seemed okay, as long as you perform your duties. My service venue was where I acquired post-traumatic stress disorder. Servicemen and women were subjected to war conditions. That was our jobs. They didn't require anything else of you. I remember the first thing that happened when I came back to the world. I was distant from my family, my friends, significant other. My life was chaotic. I had nowhere to turn. No one really understood the pain of isolation. No one identified with what you had went through during service. So I had a nervous breakdown as a result of my service commitment. The things I saw, the wounded, even though it was peacetime, there were still people stepping on landmines, bringing live foreign bazookas into camp. A friend's body was blown in half. Seeing a dead body is what it is. Korean nationals attacking you from behind, dissatisfied with American occupation at that time. Maneuvers during field operations depended on you being stable enough to deal with stress-related situations. More often than not, you came through. During full-scale alert, I reminded them that we were sent to protect the American interests. I, in Fire Direction Center, plotted grid coordinates for artillery fire. I did a forward observer work where I drove the captain around. I had a confidential clearance. My handle was Foxtrot 29er. So service is where I actually practiced being a drug user. Back in the world, it was crazy, but not like it is now. When I came back, I had delusions of grandeur, thinking that I was God's gift to mankind, so I thought. My mind told me that people were different than I was. It wasn't me, but you had the problem. I struggled with failure after my service period, even though I thought it was normal to work a little and to play a little. That's what I did the best. I never imagined being a drug addict. I was ashamed to let people know I had a mental problem. It wasn't like people in the street walked around with a master's degree, so they examined you on the spot. Basically, everyone in my circle had a problem. I didn't communicate that, and this was normal. I denied being a drug addict or that I had mental issues. Moreover, as despicable as this may sound, I lived like an animal during service and after service, became a full-fledged drug abuser. The disease of addiction was cunning and baffling, leaving me with the obsession and compulsion to chronically use, be bound to disparity, guilt, loneliness, lying, manipulation, deceitfulness, mental depression, irresponsibility, malcontent, degradation, and so on. All these are minor compared to my bottom. I remember cleaning the carpet without having a carpet cleaner. I recall being afraid of my own shadow. I recall going round and round until I passed out. I had no friends. No one reached out to me. It was as if the whole world had turned away. I have been shot in the abdomen, stabbed near my jugular vein. Hit over the head with an iron pipe that busted my head open to the white. I'm not glorifying anything. So when I turned away from being a crackhead for the first time, I felt different. I left the yard where I'd stayed and used, not knowing where I'd planned to go. There were addicts all around me, but I had turned my back on crack and using other substances. I slept on the concrete for an entire month before I was accepted into a veterans facility for rehabilitation. I stayed there one entire year. From that point, I'm grateful because I learned how to live with other recovering addicts. Today, I mentor other addicts on the importance of staying clean. I lecture throughout Narcotics Anonymous venues. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Today, I'm dealing with my mental issues, being productive in society, informing the community concerning recovery through our Speakers Bureau. I have 8 years clean and serene. I practice the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous each and every day. I have lived like an open book. I'm not ashamed of my past because it's a part of my future. So I accept the consequences of the past. I embrace wonderful feelings I have in recovery. So I hope that you have heard something or felt something that will help you in your recovery. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Kenneth Davis.
Wellness, Recovery, and Freedom by Kenneth Davis, R.S. I recall my early age drinking. I was so secretive that my casual drinking parents would say, "Kenneth, I hope you never start drinking." For years, I was an undercover alcoholic until Reds hit the schoolyard. After trying Red Devils, I was sick and nauseated for days. In school, I learned that drinking and drugs don't mix. Almost 2 years had passed between 10th and 11th grade. I was arrested for marijuana for the first time and last time. This drug arrest traumatized me and hurt my parents badly. But I continued to make bad choices and continued to use. Because of this, I didn't graduate. I was so completely devastated, I had a nervous breakdown. And I became so fearful and paranoid, my whole self-worth changed. I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I learned that my paranoid behavior did not come from just drinking and smoking. I had developed a serious disorder that I never talked about and allowed to stay hidden and protected by my self-denial and self-pity. I went through a 2-year rehab program that was really rough, but really good for me. This allowed me to work on my self-esteem and fears. It made me realize that I had to face my inner feelings. The program was so successful that I was clean and sober for almost 4 years. But it didn't last because I didn't have the support I needed to continue my recovery. I started drinking and smoking everything I could. I started hating myself for thinking I could make a difference in my life and my family's life. I still worked and even married. We were doing very well, even attended AA meetings together. But then we both cheated, and I realized that I was not a good man. She put me out, and her dude moved in. I ended up living in the streets. I relapsed and started using crack. I knew I was an addict. I decided to get myself together. I enrolled in an outpatients program, which is an intense dual diagnosis program. I began in 2005 and worked my way through. I am now in aftercare, and I am over 6 years clean. I continue to take my prescribed medications and see my psychiatrist and my medical doctor regularly. I continue to work with Options program. I attend AA and NA meetings weekly. I am very active in consumer advocacy group called Alameda County Pool of Consumer Champions. I also volunteer my time with the consumer-ran outreach program that visits clients in locked facilities and board and cares. I have found hope, and I want to share the voice of hope and recovery with those who need it most. I would like to close with a pep song I wrote to celebrate my recovery. Starting today with honesty, faith, and hope, recovery and wellness is at the top of my goal. With spiritual gladness, no troubling sadness, I'm free from the madness. Serenity take control, united for wellness and progress on my mind. I humbly ask for serenity to survive with spiritual gladness, no troubling sadness. I'm free from the madness. Serenity take control. Healing, healing. There's hope for all. Healing, yes, healing. There's hope for all. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Mr. Renwick Vitito.
I would first like to introduce myself. My name is Renwick, and I am so grateful and humbled to stand before you. I would first like to give recognition to all that have been instrumental in making this Speakers Bureau a possibility as well as a reality. I am a mental health consumer, and I have been on psychiatric medications since the age of 7 years old. My diagnoses at that time were hyperactivity and insomnia. My first medication was phenobarbital, and that was prescribed for my insomnia. I was then prescribed Ritalin for my hyperactiveness. The name hyperactivity is no longer used in describing this disorder. It is now commonly referred to as ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, although now it is referred to as mild autism. Mental illness has been around for many, many years, and they either ignored the person or just stuffed the person in an institution or someplace worse. I began self-medicating, which is another way of saying that I got high off of street drugs and or alcohol because something in my life or some chemicals in my brain was missing. I did not know something was missing. I just could not seem to fit in no matter how hard I tried. My first incarceration was when I was 13 years old for purse snatching, and although I was the driver of the car in this crime, I have been on a roller coaster ride that has lasted the majority of my life. My rap sheet is extremely long, mainly because of an older gentleman that I respected and that I looked up to. He said to me, if you start a habit or just using drugs, no matter what it is, you have to support that habit no matter what it is. Do not depend on the next person to support your habit for you. That statement really stuck with me. So the entire time that I was drinking and drugging, I had to make sure that I supported my habit. I became a functioning addict the entire time that I used. In July of 1997, I was diagnosed as a manic depressant, which is now referred to as bipolar. I am also diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. It would seem that the symptoms are the same as schizophrenia, but in essence, they are only shared similar symptoms. Schizoaffective disorder is caused by long-term substance abuse, which causes adverse side effects. I have another disorder, which is referred to as asocial disorder. I must give credit for my sobriety, recovery, delivery to my higher power, who is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I am a proud member of the Imani Community Church under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. George C.L. Cummings. I attend church services regularly, and I attend and I sing in the Voices of Faith Gospel Choir under the professional guidance of Minister Terrence Kelly. These are my spiritual supporters. I must also give recognition to, appreciation, honor, and tribute to my mother, who prayed for me without ceasing in hopes that the bondages of substance abuse and mental health challenges would release the hold that it had on me. My friends were also very instrumental in my quitting because they didn't use or sell anything illegal. I must admit that the drug culture lifestyle itself is a world all of its own and is very addictive for someone like me who has an addictive personality. I was always told that I couldn't quit using drugs, alcohol, or any other substance for someone else, and that I had to quit for myself. Well, that statement is not entirely true, because during my first month or so, I needed to find a reason to quit that was greater, bigger, and stronger than me and my weak willpower. So the first week, I quit for my mother. The second week, I quit for my kids. The third week, I quit for my grandkids. The fourth week, I quit for my friends who stuck with me through it all. The fifth week, I quit for the prospect of attracting a lifelong companion. And the sixth week, I made a conscious decision not to be homeless by choice any longer. Now, it just goes to show you that although I couldn't quit for myself in the beginning, I was able to abstain long enough for me to assume responsibility of quitting for myself. I am now clean from crack cocaine since May 9, 2001, powder cocaine since April 18, 2003, alcohol since July 2, 2007, and marijuana since May the 28th of 2009. I am still recovering from the damages and the carnage that long-term substance abuse has caused me. Not only were drugs financially costly, but it has cost me many relationships with friends and family. Some of these relationships were severed due to my isolation or the mistrust of those individuals that I had wronged. I am presently enrolled and participating in the 18-month DUI program in order to reinstate my driving privileges. I am able to drive with a restricted driver's license, but my actual driving privileges will not be restored until January 2011, and that is contingent upon my completing the 18-month DUI program. Because I have never voted, this year will be my first election that I will have voted in during my entire 47 years on this earth. I have never been called for jury duty, which means that I have never been a law-abiding citizen until recently. My small accomplishments may not seem like much to the average Joe, but it speaks volumes to a person that is used to only doing the right thing when someone was looking at me. But now I choose to do the right thing while nobody is looking at me. That phrase was a phrase that I memorized while watching a Hollywood Henderson motivational tape, and that stuck with me. At the present, I am employed with Recovery Innovations of Alameda County in the capacity of a recovery coach. I would like to pay tribute to a person who made a difference in my life, the late Mr. Thomas Walker, not just because he was my case manager, but because he showed an interest in me. I honestly do not believe that if it had not been for Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services and the late Mr. Thomas Walker, I probably would not be standing before you today. Mr. Walker provided housing for me and paid my rent for 1 full year. Many of you might have or have had a Thomas Walker in your life. In closing, I promised everyone that didn't give up on me that I would straighten up and fly right, and that I would make them proud of me. I am attempting to fulfill that vow. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share a portion of my life story with you. May God bless you and keep you from the harms of this world. This is my story, and I'm sticking with it. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us share our stories with you. We hope we have opened your minds and your hearts to some of the issues that black men face with mental and emotional difficulties, our pain and our recovery. We stand committed to positive change. Will the real black men please stand up?
How do we affect the lives of our community? How do we heal and mend the family? We'll begin by sharing our stories and addressing all of our needs. Things will change, our lives regain when black men speak. We lift our voice to speak about the things that we go through, to enlighten and educate and inspire you. Yeah, let's eradicate the stigma and the trauma in our community. Things will change, our lives regain when black men speak. How do we affect the lives of our community? How do we heal and mend the family? We'll begin by sharing our stories and address